Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag from the heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
John, we're back again this week. We got a lot of golf to talk about, some Olympics to talk about. We're going to have some coaches in here at some point. Got 3 of them scheduled today, so we'll see how many of them make it in here to talk about their teams. Let's start out with golf real quick, because last week we were kind of talking about Metcalfe County's team doing so well at the Barren County Trojan Invitational, Trojan Cup as they called it, at Barren River State Park. And we mentioned, the individually that Metcalfe's had a few good golfers through the years, and you mentioned Trey Shirley. We had like a career weekend. I don't know if you saw this. He's playing on the PGA Tour Americas, and he shot 63 in round 2, which I think is his lowest round of his career at professional ranks. And he finished tied for 4th in the Commissioner's Ottawa Cup. He was only 2 strokes behind the leader. So, it's kind of funny that you mentioned him last week, and then he turns around the next weekend and has a big weekend.
Where do you play? Where is that?
That's in Ottawa, Ontario.
Okay.
So, yeah, up there in the Canadian wilderness. That's probably not the Canadian wilderness. It's by the lakes, I believe, is where that would be, wouldn't it? So, so good on him. And then, we had a pretty busy week for girls golf, especially the Barren County girls. I think played in 3 tournaments in, like, last week, 2 in 2 days, and then they turned around and played again today over at Park Mammoth. Okay. Chloe Witcher had a good day for Barren County. She shot, I think, a 77 or 78. I don't know.
That's a good score. Is that at Park Mammoth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was 5 over. I'm not sure what the par was. I'll have that info tonight whenever it comes in. And then this was the first tournament today that Glasgow's girls team got out there. As we talked with Bart when he was in here a couple of weeks ago, I mean, he's still kind of building a team, rebuilding a team from scratch. So he's got a bunch of young golfers. For a couple of them, I think this was probably their first tournament they've actually played in at that caliber. So they struggled a little bit, but I mean, you're talking about 7th and 8th graders out there, swatting the ball around. They got some growing to do, so it's going to be a little while probably till they really kind of catch up. But, it's good to see them have a whole team back together again.
Well, I mean, it's the weather has been not bad for this time of year to be playing, to be honest with you.
No, it was beautiful this morning at Park Mammoth, which usually
not normally hot, humid, but hadn't been that humid and hadn't been that hot. So they've had a break this past basically week. The first week of the season, they've kind of been very fortunate to have decent weather. It hadn't been all that wet. I think it's rained maybe a day or so, but nothing horrible. So they've got a lot of good action here.
Yeah, because it was supposed to rain all day today, and it didn't rain at all.
No, it did not.
And so we had a good day today for golf. Also at Willow Oaks, the Glasgow Scotties were hosting their tournament. And then Zach Sloan from Hart County won the thing. He shot a 69. But it looked like until his score came in, Griffin Jackson was about to win his second tournament in a row. 8th grader coming up at Glasgow High School, he shot 71 today. Of course, he won the Barren County Trojan Cup last week with 71. Playing really well at the moment.
To say the least.
Yeah. So, I mean, he had a good day. Franklin Simpson's A team ended up winning that tournament. They seem to have a pretty good group together. None of them are shooting like, 70 or whatever, but they all shot low to mid 70s, and so they shot 306. Greenwood A was second with a 308. Glasgow and Barren as teams right now, they've got kind of a gap in here. Both of them had some really good golfers the last couple of years. Glasgow's got Griffin Jackson, who's playing really well right now. Braden Furlong's playing well for Barren. But the other rounds are kind of up in the high 70s, even a couple of them in the 90s. I mean, we've got some guys who are kind of working in. So it's kind of an off year right now for both of them. We'll see how they improve.
It's early.
Yeah, that first week's always tough. And then I was going to tell you this real quick, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the Olympics. Saturday, Barren played at Campbellsville Country Club in the Big Daddy Cardinal Classic. I have no idea why it's called the Big Daddy.
Is this boys, girls?
Yeah, boys.
Uh-huh.
And Barren, they did all right, but St. X, which I think is the defending boys state champion, shot 3 under as a team in that tournament. They won that thing by about 17 strokes. It was just crazy. I think they had one golfer out of their 5 that shot like 1 over par or 2 over par, whatever it was. I mean, they were just killing that course. It was a pretty impressive run for them.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Yeah, as a team to be under par.
Yeah, I think, and 3 under, not just under. I think they were 3 under as a team.
And I take it they weren't playing best ball either.
No, they were not.
No, they were playing each individual ball. Okay, all right, yeah, pretty good.
All right, so Olympics, you been watching this any?
I have. You know, I wish the time difference. You know, the 6-hour time difference is it's a problem. To be honest with you, I try my best to not kind of keep up with it during the day, where I can kind of watch it at night.
Yeah,
you know,
watch the replay stuff,
the primetime stuff at night if I can. But I'm for the most part a big fan of the Olympics.
Yeah. Now, before the actual opening ceremonies, they had one of my favorite sports to watch. I don't get to watch it very much because you don't see it in very many places. That the rugby 7-on-7 rugby.
Is that different from other rugby?
Well, you have a full-sided rugby, which is like 11. It's basically like a football team, and there's not much scoring in that because you just got these massive bodies on the field, and so it's a lot of scrumming and that kind of stuff, which is a little different. The 7-on-7 is like watching 7-on-7 football. It's a whole lot more action.
I didn't know there was a difference. Okay.
Yeah, so you've got a lot more spread out field. So you'll have a guys like the U.S. had a guy. His name is Perry Baker. He was a college wide receiver. So he's about 6'2", 6'3", sprinter kind of guy. Not much on the defensive side. If they run the ball at him, he's missing the tackles a lot of times. But if he gets outside, the guy was just flat gone. So, the U.S. kind of had a couple of guys who were like that who could really run. But you watch a team like Fiji, which was the defending gold medal champions, but they ended up losing, I think, to France in the gold medal game. Fiji was a bunch of guys who looked like Derrick Henry. Mm-hmm. They're all stocky, physical. They're going to run through you. They're going to stiff arm you. And then the women's sevens are going on right now. And the USA is pretty good at that. They got a couple of women who are just absolutely monsters. If you like stiff arm action in football, you'll like the stiff arm action in rugby sevens because there's a lot of it, and it's pretty physical game. It's a lot of fun to watch. And then I think the soccer got going. The USA won their first game. The men beat New Zealand 4-1. I think it was.
I don't even understand what's going on, and the women's soccer is the actual soccer.
Mm-hmm.
That's the soccer team.
Yes.
The men's soccer is not. It's 23 and under.
Yes.
So it's not even kind of the real deal.
No.
It's like JV soccer or whatever. Why don't they? Why? I don't understand. The World Cup is U.S. sends their best players if they're 40 or 16. Why is this a?
I don't know. Actually, I did not realize that until I started reading about it.
It has to be something to do with the Premier League rules. They won't let the players play or something. I don't know.
Well, so I don't know if it's always like this is what I was going to say. And it may be that because if you're in the Premier League right now, if you're playing at the toward the end of your season over there, like in the UK and I think in the European leagues as well. So, you're edging in toward the end of your season. And I'm guessing that's the deal, is they're not willing to give up those players to come play.
So, no, I'm not watching the 23 and under. No, but I did watch the women play the other day. Yeah. They're both at games, and they got a big win over Germany. I think 4-1 or something. Mm-hmm. They blew them out.
Yeah, Dennis Rodman's daughter is pretty.
She's good, isn't she? And that Smith girl is good, and the one that kind of plays the midfield. They got obviously got a new coach too, and 2-0 so far, and they're going to move on in their pool no matter. I think if they get a tie or whatever, they're definitely moving on. Probably moving on even with the loss. But anyway, they've looked good in their first two games.
Yeah,
because Germany was one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the world, and they just blew them out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now we talked about. The real men's team that we saw in the Copa America. Talking about they've developed some athleticism. They have some athletes on the team, but their skill level is not very good. The women's team, compared to others, the women's team is all of that. They've got players who can get up and down the field, and they're good with the ball. They can score. They can do everything. It's kind of amazing how the women's team can not take these athletes and develop them, or they can be developed into good players skill-wise, and the men's don't seem to be doing that. And I know it's got a lot to do with where they play overseas and the men's game and that kind of stuff, and probably the women's game as well. But there seems to be a lot more opportunity in the States with these women's leagues that have popped up, especially when we got a team in Louisville, that there's a lot more staying in the States and playing and getting developed.
Well, and also our country has been, much more forward thinking in terms of women's sports than, there's half the countries in the world didn't even let women play.
Right.
So, you got that too. We're more advanced in terms of that. But the women's team has obviously been 100% more successsul worldwide, whether it's World Cup, Olympics, or whatever, than the men's team, no question.
Yeah. So what are some sports that you've enjoyed so far? The swimming.
I love the swimming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's just started.
Mm-hmm.
Katie Ledecky. I mean, she didn't win a gold her first one, but that's her weakest event, the 400. She came in third, but the 100-meter relay, I think the women were second, got the silver, lost to Australia, who's a big rival, and and the men won the 100-meter relay. Those are just unbelievable to watch. So I love the swimming part. I like track and field. I hadn't started yet. I've kept up a little bit of the basketball. I mean, I've thrown a lot of shade at LeBron, to be honest with you, but give him credit. He's played really well.
He has, and he's clearly the leader of the team.
Clearly the leader of the team. Clearly wants to play too in these things. And they got a big win against Serbia, who has the Joker on their team.
Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, and maybe the second or third best team in the world.
Yeah.
U.S., France, Serbia, and the United States played very well against them. The level of play obviously is so much better than it was 30 years ago.
Right.
The world has caught up in many ways. They just don't have all the players on one team.
Right.
It's kind of spread out. But I've been impressed with LeBron and his play, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. So, I watched some of that and, just bits and pieces of various other things, whether it's water polo, I've watched a little of that, whether it's beach volleyball, things, there's just all kinds of little things that you kind of pay attention to.
Back to the men's basketball thing, two things. One is I've been absolutely impressed with LeBron's leadership with this team, especially on the floor. I mean, he's directing all the traffic, you can tell. And then the other thing is I watched Canada. They were a lot of fun. They've got a bunch of good players on that team. Obviously, it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jamal Murray, but they're guys that come off the bench that you're like, oh, I didn't know that guy was Canadian kind of thing. They were a lot of fun to watch. And Victor Wembanyama, man, that guy is absolutely amazing. Watched him a little bit during the NBA season, but in his Olympics.
For France.
Yeah, for France. I mean, so there were a couple of teams there that kind of jumped up, and I thought to myself, those teams might be – I don't think that they'd have the depth of talent to challenge the U.S. team, but it'll be pretty fun to watch Canada and the U.S. team play, I think.
Yeah, and France.
And France, yes.
You got Rudy Gobert, too, on
That's
the front,
right.
So, I mean – Two big guys, to say the least. So, I mean, it's I don't think it's a lock to say that the United States is going to win the gold. I think there's some severe competition, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so
beating France in France, that won't be easy at all.
No.
So, the Olympics is, it's I enjoy it for them. I do. I think there's some sports, not even call them sports, some activities that shouldn't even be, break dancing and things like that. It's just.
You ever tried breakdancing, John?
No. Surfing's in, it's not even in it's in Tahiti. It's not even in France.
Tahiti, right?
Tahiti, 1,000 miles away,
I don't think you want to go surfing in the Seine.
Probably not. Or swimming or anything.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's I like it. I do think it's interesting. We were talking off air, the number of Americans who didn't make the United States team who are playing for other countries. Mm-hmm. I'm not really sure about if I like that or not, to be honest with you. And I couldn't do it. And I wouldn't do it, to be honest with you. But there is a ton gymnastics, all kinds of Americans, not people just going to American colleges, just Americans because of ancestors, whether it's grandmother, grandfather, cousins, or whatever, are playing for other sports. There's a girl on the Spanish team who's from Iowa. Went to University of Iowa, from Iowa, that actually that added Spain citizenship just to play in the Olympics. And I'm going, boy, that is. That's a lot, to say the least.
I think for a long time, once the fall of the Eastern Bloc, all right, in the 90s, when a lot of these, especially in gymnastics, but other sports too, the coaches that were big moved their operations to the United States, and then a lot of the athletes started coming and training there, really just living in the United States. Whatever their citizenship was, they were basically living in the U.S. They weren't living in their home country.
I'm talking Bruce Springsteen. I'm talking about born in the U.S.
Well, yeah, I get you. But
never been outside the country.
Right, till they joined the basketball team.
Right.
Well, but what I'm getting at is that it's kind of a fascinating thing, is that since then, the idea that this is a competition of athletes against one another who have grown up in their home countries and they're representing their home countries and that kind of stuff. I mean, that kind of started going away in the 90s, and I think it's just fully gone away now. I mean, so many of these folks who are in the Olympics for their nations, have played a lot of sports or lived in the United States or gone to college or even high school in the United States. So it's really kind of really not true that the Olympics is a competitive event between all these different nations. It's a lot of people trained in the United States or in Europe and that kind of stuff who are representing their countries, whatever it may be. I mean, you look at that South Sudan basketball team, most of those folks don't live probably none of them actually live in South Sudan.
It's not that they don't live there. It's a lot of these people have never been there.
Yeah, that's right. They dropped a pin on the map. Somebody said, "Oh yes, your great aunt was."
I'm not
was
saying I've got
Spanish.
a huge problem, but I don't think I could play for another nation.
Yeah, now I could go play for Belize, but I'd have to move there.
You're into Belize, I know.
Yeah, I am. All right, this is Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's Glasgow. When we come back, we'll have Glasgow Lady Scotty soccer coach Scott Zettlemoyer.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
All right, we're back here on the Brown Sports Bag. We have Glasgow Lady Scotty soccer coach Scott Zettlemoyer joining John and I to talk about his team and upcoming season. I guess we'll start off. Last year was a little bit rough on you guys because you had a bunch of young players. You started the middle school program, so you were getting more players to come into the program than you had. Your numbers were up and looking good, but still probably relying on a bunch of really young players to compete at a varsity level who probably really were JV level players when you got started last year.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was. We were really young. We only had one senior last year, so we're really excited for this upcoming year because we're basically returning the whole starting lineup and bringing in about 5 or 6 new freshmen into the team. So our numbers are going to be up a little bit more than what they were last year, and should be a little bit more interesting, I think, this year.
So about how many do you have out now?
I think last practice we had about I think we were sitting at about 17 or 18.
Okay.
At one point we had about 23, and I've since run some of them off just because the running can kind of get to some of them every now and then.
I used to be amused when parents would sign their children up for soccer, and then they were shocked at the amount of running necessary. Mm-hmm. And I still find that kind of amusing sometimes. It's like this big old field. You got to get up and down this field. There's a lot of running involved, so you're going to have to run a lot at practice.
It's a lot of smart running.
Yes.
That's the key there. Is you've got to be deliberate within how you run, and that's what is hard to teach them because they just see that we're running for the sake of running every now and then, and it's like, well, when you get out there though, when you get into game like situations, it's a lot less running than what you actually think.
Yeah, it's a dead sprints from this place to this place a lot of times, right?
Yeah, you're not wrong. It's more dead sprints than it is just a constant pace.
So when you look at your team, you mentioned you only had the one senior from last year. How many do you have this year?
I think we're sitting at 5 or 6 seniors this year. 2 of the key ones, 3 of the key ones are going to be Allie, Jenny, and Elise. They're kind of like our core, and they're the spine of our team this season, I think. With some good pieces to go around them going forward, I think we have an interesting chance this year, I think.
Yeah. So because you had I think 3 or 4, maybe even 5 freshmen that ended up playing quite a bit on and off the field last year?
We had about 5 freshmen, but I think out of the entire starting 11 last year, we only had 3 that actually had played soccer before. Okay. So last year, even though it was a pretty down year for us, it got all that experience into them. And I mean, at the end of the year last year, excluding the district game, we were peaking at the right time, I think, and we were getting there. It's just ran into that brick wall of Warren East and at 8:00 in the morning, and right. That's always a tough one if the girls ain't used to it.
Well, and the state's leading goal scorer as well, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
So she's a load to deal with.
Yeah.
When you look at your schedule, when you guys get started when?
Our first scrimmage is August 8th, I believe, is what I have it down as, and then I can't remember our first start date. I think it's the 13th.
Yeah. So when you think about your schedule, I mean, what are you wanting to see out of your team early that's going to tell you how you guys are prepared for the season?
I kind of front-loaded it with a lot of tough opponents right off the bat. Unintentionally, I messed up the dating on the start dates. We got Warren East as our first game, so
okay.
If we can go out there and just put in the effort, and that's kind of what I want to see to start the first couple weeks of the season, is just where's our effort at, how are we looking, and then if we can get to somewhere where we're kind of getting into a groove of things when we play our first round of the Class 2A tournament, I think that'll be the spot where we can kind of see where we're going to go from there.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to guess with a young team, basically last year was a whole bunch of teaching soccer fundamentals.
Last year and this year, it's soccer fundamentals, soccer tactics at a very, very base level, which can be very difficult if you're not used to it. But luckily, we've been rebuilding for about 2 or 3 years now. So I mean, it's basically been what it has been because, I mean, we've had to basically start over almost every year because girls leave, and then we have girls that come in that have never played soccer before. So you're having to teach the whole rule book to your kids and go from there. But yeah, it's a lot of basic rules, fundamentals, how to kick a ball, and positions and things like that. Yeah,
John.
Yeah, that makes it tough because you would like to start off with, you always, I don't care how good you are, you got to teach skills anyway. Oh, yeah. But just basic stuff and knowledge that you're trying to teach makes it difficult. How is your skill level this year? Can you tell, have they improved from last year? Because I would think in soccer, even it's kind of like basketball, the better the skill level, it helps you score easier as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the ones that are coming back definitely have improved skill level already.
And when you say skill, be able to use
both
feet,
ball work, be able to use both feet. In all honesty, your foot skills are important, but it's more of positional awareness and knowing how to play the game on the field. That's more important, in my opinion.
Which helps in the passing angles
and everything. Yeah.
Right.
So returning basically our whole center mid and our whole striking force. I mean, I think we may have a leg up on some teams, but for the most part, it's still going to be an uphill grind for us this season, I think.
What do you think about the district? Because Barren has a new coach, so you're going to get a different look there, I'm going to guess. And, of course, they lost Hadley Adams, who was a force in the district. But when you look at the district, I mean, how do you think it kind of measures up this year?
I feel like it's going to be very similar to as it was last year. Laynie knows the game with Barren. She was assistant last couple years, and I think it was the right time for her to step into that role if she wanted it, and she did. And I think she'll do a very good job there. She's got a good core of kids, and I think they have a really good chance to repeat this year. With East, I feel like they're a powerhouse in our district now. You just got to learn to adapt and get used to it. But I think that they're going to pretty much be the front runners in our district, I think. And if with us and Allen surprised a lot of teams last year with how well they played. They beat us both times we played them. I think it's the first time ever in their history that they beat us both times, which was awesome for them. I think that they should have a good core coming back as well. I mean, our district, I think, is on the trending upwards. It just depends upon whether we peak, whether teams are peaking at the right time. It's kind of like March Madness. You got to start peaking at the right time in order to go on that run, or else you're not going to be able to handle it the whole season.
Other than the three seniors that you mentioned that are the key ones coming back, who are some other players you think are going to be critical for you guys this year?
We've got a freshman coming up, Hadley Stinson. That's Coach Stinson's daughter. I think she could be very instrumental to our back line and to our midfield. Deja Driver, star goalkeeper for us last year. I think she's got the potential to keep that going forward, and in my opinion, going to be one of the best goalkeepers in the region.
It seemed like her improvement in the goal last year was critical to how well you guys actually started playing at the end of the year.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And they when you struggle, too, your goalkeeper is going to get a lot of action, too, right?
It's going to get a lot of action, and they're going to get a lot of frustration.
Right.
Especially when last year our issue was we lacked discipline in the midfield, and we were just under pressure the whole game. We weren't able to get out of there. So, yeah, she was under fire quite a bit last year. But I think that helped her understand what she needed to do going forward. And I think that our understanding what we had to do with the midfield is what really drove us forward that last 5-6 games of the regular season, because Jenny, Susely, and Elise kind of controlled our midfield, and that Elise stepped up last year, got a lot more physical than what she had ever been, and I think that kind of switched things and allowed us to create going forward. Our issue last year was mainly just, can we put a goal in, and we couldn't do that. We only scored 2 goals last year, so can't win any games if you can't score goals.
I'm sorry, I cut you off. You got the Deja, and then I wanted to step in on that. But who are some others beyond the two that you mentioned? Those
Deja, Susely, Audrey Burchett. She's going to be instrumental to us as well. Danica Stevens. I think she's going to be really good. I mean, a lot of these girls, it's their second or third year ever playing, so I think this will be the year that we see some major improvement for some of these girls going forward.
Well, I noticed, I think you have a few of those girls that also maybe run track and that kind of stuff, and so they're good athletes, you know?
Yeah, so that was not a rule that I put in place a couple of years ago, but I mentioned to it that if they went and run track, it would help them in the long term, and physically that helped us last year because we were able to run with teams. It was just we didn't have the tactical awareness last year, I think, a lot of the times, but a lot of them ran track again this year. I don't know how many are going to do it next year, but they did it this year. They did well, and yeah, I'm excited to see what's going to happen this year.
Yeah. So what would you expect for this to be like a successful season for you guys?
I would really. I mean, the easy thing would be to say to get one win, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that in a sarcastic manner. I genuinely believe if we can get one win this year, that'll be a successful improvement year off of the year last year. But me setting high goals, I would really, really like us to get to region this year. Whether I hope that we can get the 3 seed and Barren gets the 2 seed or East gets the 2 seed and we sneak out a win there and we're able to get into that region game, or Allen gets that 2 seed and we were able to sneak out that region win, region to get to region and maybe get a region win. On top of that, having a good Class 2A run, I think, could give us a good boost this year because, I mean, I think we're hosting all the rounds for us this year, so I think that should be a very interesting situation for us going forward. I think we have a chance to get a couple good wins and maybe see what happens there.
Have your players kind of crossed that threshold where they're thinking to themselves after last year, it's only up from here? We can actually play well enough to do some of these things.
I think we're still, because physically and tactically right now we kind of took a couple steps back because of course you've had time off and everything. I think we're about right where we were at the middle of last year with our tactical awareness and things like that. So I think that if we can start the season about right there, then that should get us going in the right direction. And I think that some of the girls are starting to step up in that role, and they're like, yeah, we have potential to do something here. We just got to actually do it. So I think the girls are ready and are believing at least in what we can possibly do this year.
Before you get out of here, one last quick thing. How are your middle school numbers now?
Middle school numbers are still pretty solid. I think we're sitting at about, I think I counted about 28 last time or something like that. About 12 of them are going to be 8th graders, so that's going to be a good class coming in next year.
Yeah.
But yeah, the middle school numbers are looking good, and I'm excited to see what happens with that program going forward. And Garnet's doing a great job with them. Got a lot of wins last year. See how they can improve on it this year and keep us going forward.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Scott, for coming in here and talking to us about the Glasgow Lady Scotty Soccer Program.
Thank you, sir.
All right. It's Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
We are back here on the Brown Sports Bag. We have Barren County girls soccer coach Laynie Smith in here with us to talk about her team.
New coach.
New coach, yes. New head coach. You
New
were
head
assistant the
coach.
last couple of years, right?
Yeah.
So how's this head coaching experience been so far?
It's been good. The girls make it easy on me. I already had those relationships coming into the job with being an assistant coach the past 2 years. So I think that helped me transition into this role now.
Sometimes when you're the assistant coach, you're everybody's friend, and when you're the head coach, you're nobody's friend.
Yeah.
How's that part been for you?
Well, last year I kind of had the position of like the JV head coach.
Oh, okay.
So I think I kind of made that line
Yeah.
in the sand there.
Right.
But because a lot of our upcoming sophomores, that's our biggest group that we have. So everybody that scored in our first scrimmage was a sophomore.
Oh, okay.
So that group, they kind of know me. They kind of know what I expect.
Yeah.
A little bit more than the freshmen this year. So I'm thankful for that group. They really helped me throughout this transition up.
Yeah. John?
Well, I was just going to say, so you already had one scrimmage?
Yes.
And who'd you scrimmage?
Clinton County.
And that went?
Good.
Good,
We
all
had
right.
a good win. Gave us a chance to kind of look on what we did good, what we did bad. And then we have another scrimmage Thursday night.
How many players did you lose from last year? Very many?
I think 7 or 8.
Okay.
So a good amount.
I thought it was a good amount.
Yeah.
But you had the good thing that Barren has is our numbers have been really good.
Yes.
And
Very thankful.
Very, very thankful you're not begging people to play. Of course, the other issue when you have a lot of players is you got to find playing time and things like that also occurs. But the numbers have been good.
Yes.
Well, and you mentioned that sophomore class coming in. I mean, they were really good in middle school. They were good JV players last year. I mean, so that's a group that's accustomed to winning and performing well. So I mean, how has that transition been for them? I mean, because now that even though they're not the senior class, I mean, they got 3 more years left. You might be leaning on them a lot.
Yeah, it's exciting for me to have them, but I know that group, they've been together for a long time, and that also translates on the field. They know each other. They're friends with each other. They play another sport with each other sometimes. So just getting that chemistry on the field, that's a big deal. And I think they do well, and the seniors come into play with this, like connecting. I think they have a good relationship, which y'all know that seniors can be kind of difficult, especially when we have that big group of underclassmen. But they've done great.
Mention some of your seniors that you have.
Laynie Wheeler, Laynie Smith, Emily Adams, Megan Spears, Gentry Gray, Kennedy Rush, Kennedy Middleton. I don't want to forget anybody, but they all play a big part in what we're trying to do. I know Lizzie, Laynie, and Megan are our captains this year, and they've done a great job of stepping up and kind of taking those younger ones under their wing.
Well, I guess Lizzie would be a person, if anybody had any questions about what she's committed to doing. Last year in the district championship, you guys asked her to play goalie because you run out of goalies, and she goes and does it, and you guys win the game. And so nobody can look at her and say, well, what have you done, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So, I mean, that kind of gives her that ability to be a good leader, I guess, on the team.
Oh, for sure. And that's like, I think during our first scrimmage, we had trouble kind of settling, passing the ball back. Let's switch the field. Trust Lizzie. She's your center back. I feel confident in her foot skill, her ability to see the field, and again, that leadership. I feel confident in her on the back.
Yeah, there's so much from the basketball perspective. I assume it's the same in soccer. There's just so much coaching you can do from the sideline.
Right.
It's really, if your players who are out on the field can assume a lot of that leadership coaching decisions while they're out there, it will make your life 100% better. Plus, the kids play faster, too, because they're not looking at the sideline all the time.
Yes. And I have it kind of set up where it just so happened to work out like this. But Lizzie in that center back position, and then Megan, she's also captain in the defensive mid, with Laynie kind of playing in the midfield as well. So we have that line of communication kind of going all the way up the field. So that does help me out a lot.
So let's talk about your schedule a little bit. You mentioned you've got another scrimmage coming up, and really you kind of had your whole team there more or less last Thursday, but you were missing some players, and you had some people coming fresh off of injuries, I think is what it was. And maybe some people coming fresh off of other things they've been involved in, so maybe they've not had the full soccer practice and that kind of stuff. So when you look at the scrimmage coming up this Thursday, who are you guys playing?
LaRue County.
Okay. So what are you looking at? I mean, I'm guessing you're looking at having your full squad there this Thursday. Is that right?
Yes, that's ideal. Unfortunately, during that summer, and I did schedule the scrimmages a little bit early this year, but also we come into our season playing almost every day when school starts. So I wanted to get prepared. But Becca Boone, she also plays on the back line. She's a big help to us. She has the speed. She can take it up the line. So I'm really looking forward to having her back and having Emily, our senior keeper, back. So just kind of key parts, plugging them back into what we have.
As John mentioned, you got a bunch of players. So I mean, you've got a bunch of substitution opportunities out there. So are you going to try to play a quicker pace and that kind of thing, and knowing that you've got players you can bring in and out?
Yes, not to get too comfortable, but I feel confident in every player that I have on my roster. So that's also a good feeling to have. I made that comment the other night when we played. I think every sub that came off the bench, it kept the same tempo. And that's really important because I feel like even last year a little bit, our subs off the bench, they didn't have that intensity that our starters did. So just keeping that tempo.
Yeah.
Well, what I like about what you've done so far, and I don't know what role you had in this, but your schedule, I just think if you want to get to where you need to get, you got to play good teams. You're not going to get very far by beating bad teams. You got Bowling Green on your schedule. You got Greenwood on your schedule. You have South Warren on your schedule. I mean, you're tackling the best. And Bowling Green, and, of course, the region goes through Bowling Green. Somebody eventually is going to have to beat one of those teams. And I don't think that anybody's ever going to beat those teams by just showing up one time in a region and playing them. I think you got to play them to get better.
Yes.
And I urge you to continue to do that. I think it's whether you beat them or not, I think the experience will help you.
Yes, I think so too. And I grew up, and a lot of girls that we have now play travel ball with some of those girls. So I know we can compete. We just have to figure it out.
Yeah. He mentioned your schedule. I mean, so what, you guys open on August 12th, is that right? Who do you open against?
Bowling Green. Yeah.
At the pit?
Yes.
That won't be a test.
Oh, yeah.
So he mentioned putting your schedule together. When you were putting it together, is that what your thought was? You're like,
well, I'm not going to take credit for it all because some of it was already there for me. But I do think that it is important to play those good teams right off the bat because, yes, it could get morale a little low. But you know what you need to work on. And we have a game plan to play those teams. We do a lot of man marking when we play those teams, which is what we have to do to shut some of those girls down that are going to D1 schools.
Right.
And Warren Aces has a player like that, too.
Yes, exactly. And we've done that every game. Sorry, Will, if you're listening. But yeah, I'm excited to play those. They're going to be hard games, but we have to play them. So,
what are your players' expectations for this season?
I think we want to win district again. I think that was a high that is going to be hard to beat. I don't think we expected to win that game, honestly, and we did, and now we want to do it again. So I think the girls really want that district win under their belt.
I mean, when John mentioned your schedule and playing those schools. I mean, is that also your ambition? You've got this sophomore class. You got a good group of senior leaders, and you're looking at this and saying, we have a good chance to make some noise in the region.
Yeah, we do. I would love for it to be under me. That's my dream. And I think we can do it. I think we can get there. This sophomore group, I think they've kind of lit that match. So I'm excited to see what all they do. And our senior group is phenomenal too. So I'm excited.
Anything else you want folks to know about your team?
I'm very proud of them. We've really worked hard this summer. We're playing some good soccer, so I'm excited to see how the season plays out.
And be the second year at the new stadium, correct?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
You never got to play on the turf. What do you think about that?
Yeah, we never got to play on it, but I like it. I like the speed of play. It speeds things up. You cannot have the best touch, but it'll still go in the direction you want. Unlike the grass where it just stops and dies. But yeah, I like the turf.
Cool. All right, we've been here with Laynie Smith, Barren County Trojanettes soccer coach. First year here as a head coach. Been an assistant the last couple of years. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, this Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
All right, so supposedly there's a huge basketball game tonight that I really don't know anything about. I've seen some stuff on social media about the TBT, which John just informed me off air stands for the basketball tournament. It's
creative, isn't it?
Yes, I mean I'm guessing they're like black and white lettering, on a white background or whatever.
It's
like old black and white newspaper kind of print.
I think they started. It's been going on for about 8 years maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe it's been 8 years, and it's 32 teams, I think, maybe 64. They're down to 16 now because the team called La Familia, that's UK former players. The Ville, obviously, is Louisville's former players.
Right.
And they both won their first 3 games. And tonight they're facing each other in the quarterfinals at Freedom Hall. And it's the allotted tickets has already been sold out at Freedom Hall. So I think they just sell the lower part, maybe 7,500, be the largest crowd in the tournament's history or whatever. And it's on. I mean, the tournament's televised on Fox 1, Fox 2, some of those channels. So you got teams all across the country. Most of them are. I mean, they're former. I mean, you don't have to represent your university, but a lot of them are, and they're pros, former pros. I mean, Kentucky has, I think, the Harrison twins. Willie Cauley-Stein plays for them. Eric Bledsoe's on that team, and some of them are playing overseas too.
Okay.
Louisville has Montreal Herald.
Yeah.
He's probably their best. Shane Bohannon's on the team.
Shane Bohannon.
Yep, he's still playing. Trying to think of some of the others. Russ Smith. Who's one of the more famous players in Louisville history. So, it just so happens now they're playing against each other. I think they're down to 16 and the catch to the tournament is winner take all. The winning team gets $1 million.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't think there's any payoffs until the finals. I'm not really sure. I don't know if I get some of the ticket sales or not. I'm not really for sure. But yeah, I mean that's a pretty big buzz in the Lexington, Louisville area. And Louisville hasn't. It's been really big in Louisville because Louisville's basketball team has been so bad the last couple of years.
Need some hope.
So just watching some of the better players come back and play has been pretty neat for a lot of people.
So they played a bunch of the games like at Freedom Hall and that kind of stuff, or?
Yeah, Louisville's played their first 3 were at Freedom Hall. Mm-hmm. Other teams played there too. Kentucky's first 3 have been at Rupp Arena, and other teams have played there too.
Yeah.
They play at different sites, but Freedom Hall and Rupp have been to the host.
Yeah, I guess as a person who not a fan of either school specifically, or any school that's probably any school that's represented, I guess I should say, it hadn't really struck me. I've just seen the stuff about it, and I really had no idea what it was.
It's pretty neat how they do the games. I mean, it's normal basketball, except at the end and at the 4-minute mark, there's a target score.
Oh, okay.
So I think the way it is whoever's ahead, they set the target score as 8 points more than, say you got 60. So the target score is 68. Whoever gets a 68 first wins. So if you're up 60 to 52, you just got to get 8 more, but the other team has to get 16 more. So
it's kind of throwing in a little bit of sandlot basketball principles in here.
You can't just run out the clock, or,
Right.
or other than that, you can't foul all the time.
Right.
The team ahead has to score to get there, which is kind of a neat deal, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those, I think last year whenever the NBA was doing all these different proposal ideas for how to improve the game, improve time, and all this kind of stuff, that was one of the things that they had discussed was doing target scoring in the last 4 minutes or something like that.
Right.
I had no idea that came from this particular tournament.
That's correct.
Well, I mean, it's pretty neat. So you going to watch that tonight?
Like I said, I'm an Olympic guy, but I'll be turning back and forth.
Yeah. I don't have the channel it's on, so I guess I'll just follow along for all the rabid fans out there who will be updating the scores and whatnot. Anyway, it might be a lot of fun to watch some of those guys play. The NFL, they're giving away money to quarterbacks at the moment, trying to make sure they hold on, or
To average quarterbacks.
to average quarterbacks. And in some cases, not exactly giving away money to the quarterbacks. I mean, I think the Cowboys are not really I guess they're in discussions with Dak Prescott about an extension, and maybe that's not going to work out. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, they've had 2 signees over the weekend. The Jordan Love signed for $55 million a year, 200 and something million for 5 years, with 180 or something guaranteed, which is remarkable because he's only started 1 year. Now, he played well at the end of the year.
That win over the Cowboys probably got him that money.
But to give somebody who's only played 1 year now, of course, they drafted him. He waited behind. So evidently, and he's 25 years old, too.
Yeah.
26, something like that. So the Packers feel good enough to give him that contract. Miami finally gave Tua his contract. A little bit less. It's about $52 million a year, $217 million over 5 years. I think that's overpaid. I'm not a big Tua fan. I mean, I just he's injury prone, and I'm not real sold on his arm strength. But they're all in on the receivers and so forth, so they went all in. And of course, you mentioned Dak is the one that's still not signed. He's looking at $55 to $60 million a year. I don't think anybody's worth that amount of money. First of all, but in particular, I don't think he's worth that, and so we'll see, because they also have some other players they need to sign too, like the receivers, CeeDee Lamb.
Well, I guess the question
and
would
Micah
be,
Parsons, the defensive.
Yeah, Micah Parsons is probably the most critical piece.
And football has a salary cap.
Yeah.
And the market right now is just, to me, it's out of control for quarterbacks. I mean, anybody make that, that's just insane money.
I would have, going back to the Jordan Love as a comparison to Tua, Jordan Love made his money in that playoff game against the Cowboys, and probably even in the game against the 49ers when you get right down to it in the playoffs. I mean, he played well.
For a half. He didn't play very well in the second half, but yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. He was last 8 games, I think he threw 20 touchdowns and 1 interception.
Yeah. So you compare that to Tua, though, who looked really good early in the season.
He's good at home.
Yeah, looks good at home, but did not look so good on the road and looked terrible in the playoff game. So,
of course, the playoff game he played was minus 20 degrees.
Well, you're paying this man to win games wherever they are played. So
that's why I wouldn't have done that. But anyway,
exactly.
that's there's only so many quarterbacks, and it's amazing. He's Jordan Love right now and Joe Burrow, I think, are the highest paid quarterbacks, players, $55 million. Patrick Mahomes, who he signed earlier, but he's at $45 million.
Yeah, they'll
best player in the league, and Josh Allen is at $43 million.
Yeah. Now it will be curious to see if either one of them push to get where they believe they
I don't
should
think
be.
Patrick Mahomes is going to, because he took less anyway.
Yeah.
And he's smart enough that he saw what Brady did, and he's also has all these endorsements. And it doesn't matter to some players.
No.
They want the bag no matter
Well, they
what.
want to say I'm the highest paid player at my position,
I mean,
whatever
Dallas.
it may be.
I mean, with Dallas, because they don't have state income tax,
Yeah.
so there's already a discount down there. But it's, if you want to win as a quarterback, then you should take less money. Mm-hmm. I think you'll be fine on $40 million a year.
You think you can make it?
Yeah, maybe you can get a better offensive left tackle.
Which would be very important, especially for a guy like Tua, who, as you mentioned, is prone to injury. And plus, once the receivers' injuries cropped up, and this would be true for any quarterback, but he went basically from lighting up the league to, unable to really throw the ball, complete passes. I mean, once Hill went down and Jalen Waddle, I think, is the other receiver. I mean, those guys, that would hurt any offense. But then you have Patrick Mahomes over there showing that he can win games with guys who don't even know how to line up properly. So, there's a huge disparity between the best player at quarterback in the league and Tua, and you're giving Tua more money than that guy's making, which – And if you're the Dolphins, or I guess even if you're the Cowboys and maybe even the Packers, you're kind of handcuffed to the idea of, do we give this guy the money or do we not give him the money and see if we can do it with somebody else? And it's kind of the bird in hand versus the one in the bush principle, I think, trying to make those kinds of decisions. I don't know what the right one is, but you would hope that there's an ability for a negotiation that says, look, we want you to stay here. You want to win and we want to win. Let's try to figure this out.
You would hope.
Yeah. But obviously for some players that is not the case, and for others it is.
That's true.
You keeping up with the MLB at all here in the last bit?
Yeah, I am.
You anything standing out to you since the All-Star break?
Cardinals made a trade today. They picked up the best pitcher available from the White Sox, and that's going to really help them. So St. Louis is kind of in the running. It looks like Cincinnati is completely it's not going to be their year. They just never can really get going.
Yeah, we're kind of at that fire sale stage of the Major League Baseball season, aren't we?
Yeah, the deadline is, I think, August 1st. Mm-hmm. It looks like Cincinnati is just not going to be able to make a big run.
Yeah. So you think they'll be sellers?
I don't really think so, because they're so young.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, they've got next year and the year after, and they've had injuries this year. I wouldn't sell unless they just want to get rid of somebody. I think India, their good second baseman, could be gone because they got to make room for McClain, who's coming back off the injury. That'd be about the only one.
Yeah.
Maybe a reliever.
This is always this might be my favorite time of the MLB season because of the fire sale stuff. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it's we'll talk more about that maybe next week when we don't have so many coaches in here. All right, Brown Sports Back presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
Coming soon to your FM dial, this is Fox Sports Radio, WCDS Glasgow, AM 1230.